Welcome to another edition of Success Talk. This is Dr. Herbert Harris. Each week, we bring you incredible people, people who have accomplished great things, who have overcome challenges, but who've made breakthroughs to do, be, and have something bigger than themselves. They've made changes to the world. They've transformed other people. And today, we have one of my friends and a lady I greatly admire.
Yes. I'm so very happy to be here with you.
Well, you know, V, I was looking at your website, and so I love the colors. If you know, I'm a colorblind person. So when colors impress me, it must be special. Yeah.
Okay, I did not know that, but thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Simple is better. Yes.
Yeah. And it creates a certain vibration. Every color has a vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
I have a lot of blues. The background and my website and my brand colors, they're like a bluish gray, and you find that throughout my house. It's calming.
Yeah. Well, you know, the whole idea of that being mindful is so critical because so many people just aren't living in the present. You know, I mean, and totally non-observant.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to the doctor's office, and just for the heck of it, you know, when they ask you how tall you are, I'll say 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
And I have never had one of those assistants look up and say, "You're not 6'4". Okay. And so the other day, I took Sandra to the doctor, and her weight's about 170. And so she got on the scale, and the lady says, 112. Like, 112? I said, "Are you sure?" And she was like, "Yes, 112. I'm like, "You need to weigh her again." But it was like, yeah, people just were not paying attention. That oneness with your mind, that sort of awareness is so critical. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you interpret that mindfulness? Because that seems to be such a theme of your whole program.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, being present, being aware of you and those around you. I believe highly, even in my niche, right, dating world. Like women, I try to encourage them, be present. Stay right here where you are. So the be mindful, or be mindful, as my business is called, is really just to be aware of you, what's going on around you, as well as what's going on right now. That'll eliminate a lot of folks' anxiety if you just live right here, focus on what's going on right now and not too far into the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's critical. And I think as people get more and more into these devices, it seems that they lose that connection.
That's true. Trust me. I have 3 sons. I have one who's a teenager, and the oldest son and the youngest son are 10 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so the oldest one is 26. He didn't have TikTok. You know, he had a flip phone. You know, it's different. The youngest one has TikTok. You see him going around doing these dances, you know, but my oldest one didn't have that. And so I see a difference just in my own kids.
Yes. Well, you know, my daughter was in that sort of in-between era, so she never even got a cell phone until she was 14.
Okay.
So she's not quite into it as most of her contemporaries or the people she relates to. You know, she's not married, has no kids, so most of her contemporaries in their 20s, and there's nothing but that phone. That's all there is. If it's not coming out the phone, it's not real. Wow.
I know. It's unfortunate. The phone has made it so addictive. Yeah.
Yes.
I know. It's terrible.
But B, tell us a little about your background. Where were you raised? What were your early years like? And how did you move into where you are now?
Sure. So I was raised in different parts of the world. My dad is retired Air Force. My parents are still married. My mother is born and raised in Taiwan, so I'm half Chinese and I'm half Black.
Hmm.
My parents just celebrated their 50th year wedding anniversary. They did have two children, myself and my sister. My sister did pass away 11 years ago from cancer. So she would be turning 50 this year,
Hmm.
but she's no longer in the physical form. She left two sons, and I have three sons. So my parents have five grandsons. We have no girls in the family since me and my sister,
Hmm.
and I have two grandsons. So I even have boy dogs. We have no girls. My dad is counting down to have the first girl. I am too. I
Yeah.
want to buy baby dresses, and I did graduate from college many years ago. So my professional career is I'm a leader in technology. So I oversee application developers and software testers, as well as a portfolio for a large company. But what I also do is my business, which I am a relationship coach and a published author and a podcast host. And I'm sitting here with you.
Yes. Yes. Thankfully. Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. What
Yeah.
a blessing.
Mm. Now, a relationship coach, that's a interesting profession. I don't know that that existed. Let's just say 10, 15 years ago. I don't even think that existed. But I get now it seems to be something that's very hot.
Do you remember? I don't know if you watched the movie, but he in the movie he called himself a consultant. When Will Smith played in the movie Hitch, he
Yes.
was a relationship coach, right?
Yes.
And back then it wasn't as popular, right? I mean, they did a whole movie on the theme of it. So yeah, now it's more popular, right? So you have some really good relationship coaches, and you have some that are, not so great,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it's definitely out there.
Mhm. Well, what do you find is there a number one challenge, or is there sort of a common thread you see in relationship coaching?
Well, I do. I will say what I have decided to focus on are probably more women like me, because my girlfriends are like me, right? You tend to gravitate towards people who are alike, right?
Hmm.
And I noticed that my girlfriends, I have been married, but many of my girlfriends have not been married.
Hmm.
We were, in our careers and single moms. And so I've decided to focus my energy right now into coaching women like me
Hmm.
who struggle in the dating area, learning how to, we all want masculine men, but it's hard for us to attract masculine men when we're busy being men ourselves.
Hmm.
So I do see that as a major issue when it comes to women, successful, ambitious women looking
Hmm.
to attract a successful, ambitious man.
Hmm. Well, that's an interesting thing when you're saying, especially a woman who has a profession and a career. I in the old school, my mom and my aunt were both teachers with advanced degrees, and
Hmm.
and my aunt never married. You know, and my mother married, and this was in the South. My mother married a person who was not comparably educated. Let's just put it like that.
Okay, understood.
And one of the things I found that she always, as far as her career, her professional life, he just was not a part of it. He just and she, I mean, she became a principal, and in that era of integration, when the integration
Mhm.
took place in our city, she and my aunt were probably two of the most highly educated teachers, with professional licenses and all those kind of things. In the South at those times, Black teachers couldn't go to graduate schools in the South because the colleges were segregated.
Mhm.
And so they never wanted to face that. And so what they would do, they would tell the teachers, if you could find one course that's not given in a school, let's just say in North Carolina, we will pay for you to go out of state, pay your
Mhm.
expenses, pay your tuition, give you a stipend. And so, of course, everybody wanted to study anthropology with Margaret Mead. Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so when they had the integration, she was tapped as a principal. My aunt became a principal, and so there was a certain amount of political stuff. And I know my dad just never. I don't think he ever went to any function with her ever. You know?
Mhm.
And so, and I can see from a lady who's on the move, that could be, because that's kind of expected in the corporate world. Would you say?
It is, however, so I'm not, even though I help women in that area, I would advise women to be open-minded,
Uh-huh.
right? We look at data as far as being black women, and I'm going by numbers alone,
Yes. Uh-huh.
they're more educated, we'll just say educated, or professional,
Uh-huh.
established black women than there are black men.
Uh-huh.
Right. And so I'm not a huge proponent of saying you have to, girl, if you make 200,000, he got to make, no, he ain't got to make 200,000. He doesn't have to be so-called on your level with your education, your background, your job, and your income. I'm not a big proponent of that. I do believe that you need to focus on other qualities about the person, mainly
Mm.
how does he make you feel? Is he an
Yeah.
honest person? Is he a good person? Is he a good man?
Yeah.
Is he going to cover you and your family in your home? Those are more important qualities but I do see women, that are stuck on, hey, he has to have as much as I have. And I disagree because the data doesn't support that preference,
Uh-huh.
right? You may have to consider dating outside your race
Uh-huh.
if it's important that he has a PhD and so forth. You may have to consider that because the numbers don't support us always getting the strong black man that we want, right? We all want that. I was raised by a very strong black man. I love my black daddy, and
Uh-huh.
I love black men, but if I am prioritizing his education, his degree, the pool isn't going to be as large as it is for black women. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to be mindful of that.
Mm. Mm. Wow. That's the whole area, and I think you're going to get. You got. I think that area is going to grow bigger and bigger because a larger percentage of black women are in college. A larger percentage of black women are going to medical schools and professional schools. As a matter of fact, I was interviewing a doctor, and he said that there were fewer black doctors in school now
Mhm.
than there were in 1970.
I believe that.
Uh-huh.
I attended a conference many years ago, an IT conference, and his name, I think he's an astrophysicist, right? Dr. Neil deGrasse, is that his
Yeah,
name?
yeah, Neil deGrasse. Yes.
Okay, he was a keynote speaker, and usually keynote speakers be just as dry and as boring as they could possibly be. But
Uh,
he was so engaging, and the information that he presented was that STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math in the U.S. was like going like this,
uh-huh.
whereas Asia, including India and East Asia, their numbers were going like this, and
Uh-huh.
we're steadily declining. So we as a country, as the US, yeah, I can 100% believe that because the doctor had presented that information. So I can see that.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Now, in that corporate arena, as you might say, a strong female, um, what were your blocks? Were there any blocks that sort of kept you from moving where you wanted to go?
Okay, so do you mean in my blocks as far as finding love or my career?
Well, let's do them both, but let's do career 1st. Uh-huh.
Okay, career easy. I'm a black woman in technology, and I would be lying if I didn't say I don't face adversity of being a black woman in technology in
Mhm.
a technical field. It is. I've had several times that I can think of. I'll propose ideas, right, and then I can think of a colleague in particular. I can think of a couple of them in particular. Be like,
Mhm.
oh, that doesn't make sense. And then they want me to explain it, hand, tooth, nail, everything, right? And then I'm prepared to do so, but they still refuse to get it. Then a few months later, if they wait that long, they'll present the same idea. And then all of a sudden, it's a great idea. And I'm like, it was great when I said it a few months ago.
Mhm.
So I get that a lot, or they may not trust my judgment. They second guess it. And it could be a woman thing, but it's also a Black woman thing in technology, because there's this book that I read. I think it's Nice Girls Still Don't Get the Corner Office. And in this book, they have this playing field, right? From the think of a football playing field. They have white men get the whole entire playing field. Black men get a little less. White men get a little less. I mean, white women get a little less. Black women, literally, we're probably at the 40 to 40. And it's just, I see it all, and I can see it. I see it all the time in my career. So
Yeah.
there's that. Go ahead.
How do you handle it? How do you survive and thrive in that environment?
Well, when I was in college, it's the same mindset. When I was in college, I was studying. Well, I did have a baby in college.
Mm-hmm.
So my junior year, I had my oldest son. I stayed in school and I graduated on time. I had to get on, I was on welfare, I was on Section 8, I was on every public assistance you can name, so that I could graduate.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up changing my major the summer before my senior year, which meant that I was super behind because I originally went to school to be a veterinarian. So I was on an academic scholarship. But then when I changed my major, I lost my scholarship. And so that summer I had to take a bunch of classes. And at this point, I was already a mother. The professor, it was Southern literature, because I went from animal science to English. I was like, I got to graduate. I got to get out of here 4 years because I got a kid now. In Southern literature, the professor, he assigned us readings of everything. Everything was an N-word, everything. And I was the only Black person in the class. And it drove me crazy. And it was just, and I understand it's Southern literature, but on the flip side, I was like, I asked him one day, is there anything else that we could possibly read besides this? We even watched movies. I was like, it was always, in this, in that, go fetch this. And I just couldn't take it no more. So when I asked him, can we watch anything else? I said, it makes me feel like you're racist. And he said to me, and I am not even lying, he said, well, I am racist.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to say, but there was a white girl that spoke up in the class. And she said, because I was speechless. I didn't think he was going to say that. But she spoke up and she said, how could you say that? You're supposed to be a Christian man. And then he started explaining himself. I don't even know if I heard him, but I did report him, and I had a work study job and I got fired. And so that was that. So I took the action to say, you know what? He ain't gonna prove that, I'm not gonna prove his theory that we are not intelligent and we are inferior. I'm not gonna help him prove that. So I busted my butt and I got a 98 in that class. So I just wanted to prove to him that I got the best grade in that class intentionally, because I knew what he thought and I knew what I was up against. So as far as my career, I take that same mindset. I'm gonna prove that you wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I interviewed a lady, and many people don't realize that there are Black women in all kinds of critical corporate positions. And I interviewed a lady who reminded me of the Hidden Figures movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this lady had worked for RCA, Sony, every major corporation. Sony literally hired her and took her to Japan for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm listening to her. The interview went on for 2.5 hours because every time she'd say something like, well, I worked for Sony. I'm like, well, how'd you get to work for Sony? And she said, well, I was working for RCA and I had made some recommendations. And she said that RCA and Sony were getting ready to partner to make the Walkman. And RCA, I think, had one vision that it should be a very expensive item available to the rich. Sony saw it as an inexpensive item available to the masses. And it had a big difference in the manufacturing process. I guess, whether you make a quality product or a mediocre product, because the price point. And when she made her comments, the people from Sony said, we want you. Because Japan was going through that, I guess, that dimming quality production and they brought her there, and she trained the executives, all the corporations. She trained the top people. And as I'm listening, I'm like, well, why would you be training the vice presidents of this one, the executive vice presidents of that, the top? I mean, I'm a halfway intelligent black man, but I just could not fathom it. And she said, well, you know what it was? She said, number one, I was smart. And just as you demonstrate, I was smart. I
Mhm.
was competitive. If you gave me a challenge, I'm going to solve it. And I understood systems. And I'm like, wow.
Mhm.
She said, but the main thing was that I was a black woman. I'm like, well, how'd that figure in? She said, because if I had been a white man teaching those executives, they would not have accepted it because they would have seen me as a competitor.
Mm.
And she said, being a black woman teaching it, it was almost like they could accept the knowledge and disassociate it from me because there was no way I was going to compete against them.
Mm. And that's something.
Isn't that something? Wow.
I don't doubt it
Yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So
Mm.
now in your relationship business, what are your in your relationship life, what was your big challenge?
Oh goodness, I had a lot of challenges. I'm single. I was a single mom to three sons. I was married for a number of years, 12 years. Looking
Okay.
at your background, I was married 12 years. We did get a divorce. And we kind of remained friends after that for a period of time until he got remarried.
Hmm.
Then our friendship went from, but
Hmm.
either way, then I was single for a while. I think I got divorced probably about 8, 9 years ago. I
Uh,
was single intentionally for a while, but in this time period, I have a habit of filling up my day with about everything imaginable. I can be a very busy person. But I had to finagle, figure out, okay, I'm going on dates, I'm meeting men. I never had any issue meeting men, never, ever, ever. I and about 8 year time span, including separation to officially, separation, divorce, and me being single 8 years, I went on about 200 dates, and
woo.
most of it was just first dates. Believe
Uh-huh.
it or not, it was 1 to 200 days. Most were first dates, and that's a lot of men.
Uh-huh.
But I would go on dates, and I'm very close to my daddy, and I would call my dad. I'm like, I don't like him. I don't like him. And everybody had a nickname, right? I never
Yeah.
gave real names.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I couldn't figure out, like, why don't I like anybody? And I would try, I would try to see the positive, but I just couldn't. I but I finally figured it out.
Uh-huh.
I was overly masculine, and my masculinity was overtaking theirs, and therefore, because I could see that that person wasn't able to control my masculine energy, I immediately saw them as a no, thank you, because I would be running them, and that's not what I wanted. So
Yeah.
I had to learn how to scale myself back a little bit
Uh-huh.
and not
Yeah.
be so leading with my masculine energy. I had to learn that first. And then I had to learn to be okay, allow a man to lead. Because if you don't ever let him lead, he ain't gonna lead. He gonna go somewhere else. And when,
Uh-huh.
she gonna let him lead. Like, so I had to learn all that. It took me a while.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Now that's interesting to let a man lead. That's an interesting phrasing. Hmm. Yeah. It's hmm, it's interesting. How does that look?
I tell you, when you are a leader in your job, and then you
Uh-huh.
come home and lead, and
Yeah.
you're telling these boys what to do, and even the dog, get up out my way, go sit down or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It is so easy to take that same energy and apply it to the relationships, right?
Ah,
I was
yeah.
like, and the thing is, I didn't grow up like that. I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't grow up seeing that.
Yeah.
Because my mom is, I mean, she's Chinese, but she's not. I know people have this image of Asians lady, be like, oh, whatever you like. My mother
Uh-huh.
is not like that, okay?
Uh-huh.
Not
Uh,
at all. My parents look out for each other, but I never saw my mom like overriding my dad's energy. My
uh-huh.
mom is still a mother, very nurturing, but she's never
Uh-huh.
had to be in a place to where she had to rule the house and
Uh-huh.
be mother. So me, it's like I got to run the house and be nurturing, right? And
Uh-huh.
so it's
Yeah.
not me being who I am was not what I saw growing up because my mother never
Ooh.
had me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's my father,
Yeah.
and he would take out his belt and he would whip us,
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
father was there to discipline and pay the bills and then allow my mom to be in that nurturing space. But
Uh-huh.
when you don't have somebody else, I told my kids, y'all see anybody laying next to me? No, it's
Uh-huh.
just me, right? So I have to do the disciplining.
Uh-huh.
Even though I was married, and there is a ex-husband in the picture.
Uh-huh.
mm, his fathering skills I always question. I was like, oh, I'm a better parent, because
Yeah.
I was more engaged,
Uh-huh.
so I was still the disciplinarian. I was still the one trying to help the kids, guide the kids. When you're raising black sons, it takes a lot of energy because it's not, my white colleagues. I'm like, we ain't got the same issues.
Uh-huh.
We
Yeah.
don't have the same experiences you raising your children. Y'all at the bus stops, sipping on lattes and stuff. And y'all just sitting there going home, being a stay-at-home mom. I'm trying to get around y'all at the bus. I'm trying to get to work. Y'all need to move. Our
Yeah.
issues are not our
Not the
experiences are not
same.
the same.
Yeah.
Not at all. So me being in that energy, I just really had to learn how to, okay, what would you like to do? I literally just had to shut my mouth because that was the feedback that I had gotten from my ex-husband and
Yeah.
other men who tried to date
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
To just shut your mouth, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you know, and I had to learn how to do. Okay,
Yeah.
what
Now,
what
now
would
what would you know what, you're cracking me up because I'm thinking a lady I worked with, Tony, was a corporate trainer, and she felt that her challenge. Tony was like 6 feet tall. How tall are you?
I'm only five. I told you my mom was Chinese. I'm only
Uh,
5'4".
okay. Well, Tony felt, I think she was 6 feet, so she had an imposing stature,
Mhm.
and she was raised, like I said, daddy raised. Okay. And used to operate. Now you're talking a lady who operated in management in the mm, in the 70s, in the 80s.
Mhm.
When it was like operating in a jungle. And so when she decided to get married, she married very late, and for a long time she used to say, she said, I have to get in front of the mirror and I have to look in and I have to go, what would you like to do? And she said, she said, I had to practice it so that I could say it.
I understand. I do understand. I do understand that.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah, yeah.
And it comes so easy for many women, who haven't had to wear, the pants and the dress in the house.
Hmm.
I would love to just be nurturing to my sons. And I know my sons, even my oldest son especially, pointed that out that, Mom, we grew up with a mom, even though I had a man in the house for a while. That's the
Yeah,
thing. I
yeah,
had a
yeah,
had, had a person in the house that had a
yeah.
penis for a while. It wasn't just me.
Uh-huh.
But like my oldest son said, we always have seen you, be in this
Yeah,
disciplinary state that we never got to see you being that nurturing mom.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
want to be nurturing. I want to
yeah,
be the mom to come to
yeah,
PTA and bake the cookies, but somebody got to go to work and pay these bills.
yeah,
It
yeah,
is a challenge, and that has been
yeah.
difficult for me.
Well, kids can tell who's boss. you know, you notice who they come to when they want something. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, they can tell who's boss. Well, how did
Hmm.
you overcome it? I mean, how did you finally resolve it? Because you seem to be very much at peace with yourself now.
Well, I'll tell you, I did not go without a whole lot of work into myself.
Hmm.
I was looking at your book and a lot of the things that I have as far as working on myself. I did a lot of things that you were talking about in your book.
Hmm.
I'm a huge, and one thing I found really interesting about your book, because when I tell people that I'm into manifesting and I'm hugely into manifesting, people think that it's anti-God, and I'm like, it's not. And so one thing you really loved about your book was that you do tie the two together.
Hmm.
They they are together. Some people, look into manifesting as being spiritual. You call me spiritual. I'm fine with that, but I'm also a believer. I'm also a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the things I had to do was first here, I had to fix my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I had to really pay attention to the words that I was telling myself and the thoughts that I was having.
Mm.
Um, a lot of the experiences that we go through, it is what you're telling yourself. One person could have one purview of this, and then we're looking at the same thing, but somebody sees something completely different.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I had to start with myself. I
Yeah.
don't care where any woman is out here as far as dating. I don't care where you are. If you don't fix yourself, you will stay single, hurt, and alone if you're trying to find a man. It all starts within. You are attracting what you are, what you think, what you feel, what you believe,
Mm-hmm.
and so I got a life coach, and I worked with her for a couple of years, and she really helped me get my thoughts together. I didn't realize my thoughts were so scattered brain.
Mm-hmm.
I would say one thing, and then, I don't know if I ever meant it inside. And so I had to align my words with what I was thinking because they were not the
Mm. Right. Wow.
so I started there. And then, like I said, I got a life coach.
Mm. And that I think we can kind of put a pin in that because so many times Michael Jordan had a coach. Our egos go against, seeking help so many times. Our egos go against saying, you know what, I don't know what I am doing. you know, I'm on
Yep.
a I'm driving down driving in circles on a 8-lane highway and wondering why I keep getting hit by cars. So I think for our listeners, that's a good point, that how did you finally, resolve it to get a life coach? I can't, because that seems to be a block, when I talk to people that that life coach idea is one that many people resist. What was your breakthrough to finally get you to say, look, I got to do this?
Well, you know what? I didn't even know what to expect with a life coach.
Mm,
I went to the first session and I really liked her,
mm,
because it's important to mesh with your coach, right?
mm,
So I really liked her. Things about coaches that people don't understand of what coaching is, it's really you. I'm just repeating back what you're saying, but I'm helping you find you. And to your point, there's a block there that is
mm,
hard for us to find ourselves, and that's what
mm,
there to help you. They're there to help you remove those blocks, the blocks that you
mm,
have been unable to remove yourself. And so when I started working with her, it literally just started with one session. I said I'd give it a shot.
mm,
My job was it had to, and I didn't know what a life coach. My job was promoting life coaching. I was like, oh, well, let me try a session,
mm,
right? And then it started from there. But what it did for me was open my mind up. And then I started reading. I read a lot. I read a lot of books. I have books right here. You can't see them,
mm,
but I have books on my desk. And then I listened to podcasts, listened to YouTube. I really got into listening to Joe Dispenza about the subconscious and a conscious mind, right? And I just constantly began to educate myself about, well, what is my brain doing? Then I got really educated into manifesting because I manifested the man I'm with. I
yeah,
manifested my ex-husband. I just forgot when I manifested my ex-husband, I just forgot to put things like, loyal and honest. I
yeah,
left those things off the list. I
yeah.
put everything else on the list. I'm not even like everything else. You'd laugh if I told you what was on I had things on my list. I had a paid off Honda Accord on there. And damn if you ain't have a paid off Honda Accord. Like
Uh-huh.
I just put these things together and I knew manifesting worked, but I didn't really start to get into it, like researching it and reading more and more books about it until I got my life coach. So she kind of opened the door and then I just
Hmm.
ran with it.
Right. Well, we manifest basically on the level of consciousness that we're at. And so like I love the scripture. I love scriptures, and there's that scripture, when I was a child, I thought as a child, but then when I became a man, I set away childish things. But that's a symbolic message, but it's a principle that a child meaning a particular state of mind. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you move to a higher state of mind, now you stop thinking from that lower state of mind and you move to another state of mind. And
Mm-hmm.
so as you say, we manifest that which is congruent with who we are. You have a profound, beautiful understanding of that. And so as you work on you, as you change your vibration, you attract different things. Yeah. Wow.
I absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow.
And where I am today, I would say I'm very happy of where I am today. I
Mhm.
have, and then one thing I'm gonna tell you this: women,
Mhm.
stop listening to your girlfriends, right? And
Mhm.
so I have, girlfriends who would think like in my current relationship, then I'm not even gonna say my best friends, but other friends. That's why I keep people out of my business.
Mm.
But they'll say, well, by now, I would think you'd have XYZ in your relationship, like a title, and you'd have all these things. And I'm like, that's your thinking and those are your beliefs. I'm
Uh-huh.
fine with, we started this session today with, I'm fine with staying in the moment. I love where I am in this moment and
Yes.
I'm honoring it. And I think that's the great thing that works in my relationship, where I am, either in my relationship, my life. I'm focusing on where I am right now.
Yes.
Right
Yes.
now. And right
Yes.
now, I love where I am right now.
Wow. Well, it's been quite a journey. I can tell you that, an interesting journey. When you think about, if you could look back on your life, like as you say, when you're coming out of college, when
Mhm.
you at that point in your life, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would give my younger self to believe more in yourself,
Mm,
and know the true power of your thoughts.
okay.
You know, live the life you want to live. You get to define it.
Yeah.
You have the power to define your life.
Yes.
I would definitely, and I would tell our young folks the same thing. I try to tell my grandson, he's 7, imagine and trying to explain to a 7-year-old. I'm like, you can have the life you want. Just think it, feel it, taste it, imagine it, whatever you have to do. I did an iMovie on the Apple iMovie. I just put some videos together. You can just get them from YouTube, where you can, because people do vision boards where you can do a vision movie, and
Uh-huh.
if that helps you to
Uh-huh.
visualize the life that you want, I would
Yes.
tell my younger folks that picture it, close your eyes. What do you hear? What
Yes.
does it smell like? Well, how does
Yes.
it feel? Because that visualization is going to bring forth your manifestation, right?
Yes.
It's there. So I would definitely tell my younger self that. I'm like,
Yes.
girl, you better do X, Y, and Z.
Uh-huh.
And I've always been big on, I have 3 sons. My middle son, he is a different type of character. He really is. But
Uh-huh.
one thing that I love about my middle son is he's never given a darn about what people think about him.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Right. And too many people, my youngest son does care what people think about him. My older son he's the true leader, right? He's
Uh-huh.
the leader. I never really cared about what people think about me too, but that fear that people have holds you back. Stop caring about what everybody thinks about you, right?
Mm.
Just go with whatever life you're visualizing, go forward and get it. I don't care what people, whether you like me or not.
Mm-hmm.
uh, the people who criticize you often are not people that have accomplished anything themselves, right? So we have to be aware of those who criticize you. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to give me constructive criticism, I could do things better, but you're coming from a place of sincerity, you're coming from a place of love, and I want to see you do better. I'm all ears. But if you're coming to criticize me, you can kick rocks, because
Yeah.
I ain't listening to you.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. Sometimes the people who criticize most are the ones who do the least. And they
Amen.
you know, and they often criticize you because they have nothing else to do.
Nothing else
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. 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 I was speaking to the church yesterday, and we were talking about criticism, and I was saying that if you go back, I've been to Egypt, Rome, in Europe, you will never find a single statue erected to a critic.
Okay. Hmm.
Okay. Not everyone on the planet, nobody's ever erected a statue to a critic. So
Amen.
that's some powerful advice to the younger self.
And young folks today need that because we see, suicide rates. We see people giving credence to a whole lot of people who don't matter. Sometimes I post a lot of reels, and I'm talking right in the
Yeah,
reels, and some people say, whatever. It usually be. I'll be honest. I'm gonna tell you, it's not a lot of the women that come for me, but my reels are very. I tell women what they could do better, and I'm never attacking anybody. I can never come
yeah,
from a place of attacking men or
right.
women. I'm a woman. I'm raising three men, so
Yeah.
I love men and women. But when I post something, what men could do better, and people can go to look at my stuff on
Uh-huh.
IG, you can see that I don't disrespect any men or women.
Yes.
It'll be men who probably, living in a mama's 2-foot basement or whatever, all they got is the family dog, to
Uh,
their name. They just really haven't done anything with their lives. But you will see they criticize me under
yeah.
my videos. Now, if I were a weaker minded person, I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get off IG because
Yes.
people
Yeah.
criticize me.
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever, that mess going one ear, not the other.
Not the
I
other.
could care less.
Yeah. Yeah. Now give us your Instagram feed again. Your handle on Instagram.
It's V, so V is in Victor, a mindful_coach. And you can find me on IG.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to doing a live with you on Instagram because you have such a good energy.
Oh, thank you.
You know. Now you were saying that you're at a point now in your life where number one, you have a very valuable service, and I predict that you have a voice that many women need to hear
Hmm.
because it's so easy to let other people define you, and so, when you have families and responsibilities, sometimes I get a sense that people settle. They say, let me find some joy in this situation that's not ideal, but let me just try to bring about something that works. And
Hmm.
when a when you hear your story and hear your understanding, really, from a woman's point of view, I think it's an inspiration.
Hmm. Thank
Because
you.
there are many women who, it's funny. I've only met one mother that left home, left the kids twice. You know, men will leave, okay, but women always have that stickability. And
Hmm.
so I think that you'll be a great inspiration because there are many women who uh, work working women in the profession and professional women, women with a career who have children who go through some of the same things. And
Absolutely.
see, you have something that many people don't have, men and women. You have a good dad. Can you imagine if you didn't have a dad to call and ask when you went out with Willie Boy or whomever? If you didn't have somebody to call, can you imagine calling your girlfriend?
And that's probably one reason why I stay single so long too, because I have a dad. And I would tell men, whoever was trying to date me, I don't have any daddy issues. I know what love is, and you're not
Mm-hmm.
gonna trick me or fool me to think that that's love because I know better.
Yeah.
Um, and my dad has been talking. He talked to me and my sister since we were little girls
Uh-huh.
about
Yeah.
men. Uh, my dad is the type of person, or the relationship that I have with my father. I know many fathers are trying. I have a lot of male friends who are fathers who want to know. They ask me, like, what did my dad do that would cause such a close relationship between us? And
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing I could tell folks is my dad listens.
Yeah.
He listens without telling me what to do right away. Like, I'll just vent and my dad will just sit there and listen. I think that's the greatest gift that we can give our children is
Uh-huh.
instead of just going into, I'm going to tell you what to do because you're my child.
Yeah.
Once your child becomes an adult, there is no more telling them what to do.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
you can do is listen, and that's what I do with my older sons. I just try to listen instead of always trying to tell them what to do. Because one thing I learned is if you constantly live in that energy, you're going to push your children away. They're going to
Hmm.
not come to you. So I've told my dad all kinds of things that people be like, "You told your daddy that?" I'm
Hmm.
like, yes, I did. I told my
Uh-huh.
dad when some man left me in a hotel room,
Uh-huh.
we went, I brought him to my professional work event, and he acted a fool at my work event,
Uh-huh.
as far as wanted to go right away. And I had spent a lot of money getting my makeup done and got a beautiful dress. And then
Yeah.
as soon as we get there, he was ready to go. And I was like, this is a huge event for my company.
Yeah.
I was ready to go, but because he had an attitude, we left. And then
Uh-huh.
that night, because we stayed at the event, there was hotel room. He thought he was gonna get some booty.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't get no booty. So
Uh-huh.
he left me in the room, which was fine because he was snoring anyway.
Uh-huh.
He left.
Uh-huh.
He left me in the room, and I told my daddy the next morning what had happened. And all my dad said was, "You gotta be careful about who you take to these professional events. Everybody can't go with you, to these types of events. And if
That's
if
right.
you knew,
That's
and I
right.
didn't know that he was gonna act like that, but it
Yeah.
was a lesson I had to learn."
Yeah. Yeah.
But the point is, like, I told my daddy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was honest about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I say I'm gonna tell you something, V. I know you're dealing with, like the relationship and daddies and dating and whatnot, but I tell you, you have a message for professional women, for career women that they need to hear because you've been through a lot of it. That's like I was saying, that's probably why my mom never took my dad to anything. And once you're in the corporate arena, that's the model they have. That's the model of that the couple, the male female relationship, and then the travel. These companies, if you're going to rise up, they're going to send you to different places around the world. It's kind of like the army, a little bit of the military. So you have a message for these women that really you can give because you've been there. It's not like I read a book on human resources and and how to handle this stuff, but it's like I was there in the hotel room. I was there when he showed his butt. And now I know, now I know how to I'm not going to take you there unless you're battle tested, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I
But
learned stuff
yeah,
the hard way.
but you know what's funny? Yeah. I lived in New York for many years, and for about 17 years I was single. And so I was a professional escort. Now, what I mean is this, not was that many of my friends, and I always had more lady friends, but I was the person that they could take anywhere.
Hmm.
You
Okay.
know, okay,
Act. Yep.
yeah, yeah, that I knew how to act, and I was the person that had gotten the right script. So one of my friends was a singer, and she called me. She said, "Herbie," she says, "I'm doing the Jerry Lewis telethon." I'm like, "Whoa!" She says, "I'm for me, and I'm working with Cheetah Rivera." I'm like, "Whoa!" She says, "I need an escort," and so, and sure enough, to open the door for her, to take the coat for her, to move the chair for her. Everybody's like, "Where do I get one like that?"
Well,
Where I,
that could be very profitable today.
yeah, where can I get me a Herbie?
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, but from a lady's point of view, I really got to see it. And as you were sharing that, I'm like, man, I really understand it now. And so many of the women was like, hey, I can hang out with you. I can let my hair down because I know who you are and I know what to expect and I know what you can handle, how you can operate. So with this type of knowledge and where you are in your life, if you look 25 years down the line, 25 years, what advice would you give your current self?
I would give, if I'm in 20, 25 years from now, what I would give my current self is, I have to remind myself, even though we started with living in the moment, I have to remind myself to honor and celebrate the small wins too. I
Okay.
know I'm working towards big wins, but I have to honor and respect the small wins that I have, and honor the time that I spend with my children, my mom and dad. I know none of us are going to be here forever. And so that I don't work so much that, and it's not even working for my 9 to 5, but working on my brand,
Uh-huh.
right? Don't work so much that you miss out on life. So I'm reminding
Mm.
myself that, because time is going by very quickly. It is going by very quickly. I'm looking at like, whew, my son's 26 years old, and I remember when he was 2. I remember when he was born, and life is going by so fast. And life, just like dating, I tell people it's a collection of moments. Honor those moments because they're not going to be here forever. And so if you have a good day, say, you know what, today was the best day of my life. And just keep saying that today is going to be the best day of my life. It is the best day of my life. And love the people who love you back. Watch what
Mm.
you say, right? To people, because you never know, that might be I just did a reel on that. That might be the last words you say to somebody, right? Because I've been in that situation before. My previous ex was murdered, when my older 2 sons were 6 and 3. And the last words we said to each other were mean. And then a couple of days later, he was killed. And it was just me being argumentative at the time because I was immature. I'm like, no,
Mm.
we gonna talk about it right now, right now. We're
Uh-huh.
gonna and I had that regret for a while, right? So and I just wasn't sleeping well at the time until he came into my dream and told me it was going to be okay. But it took a couple of months for me to see him clearly in my dream and say,
Uh-huh.
it's okay. And then I forgave myself, right? But I would just tell myself, remind myself that you have people in your life who really love you, and spend time with them. And you asked a few minutes ago, like, imagine if I hadn't had my father, or even my mother. But I know there may be a time where I may not, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I think that I already know. I don't want to cry.
Uh-huh.
But I know, those people, I see my friends my age who are going through that,
Yeah.
and I'm like, ugh,
Yeah.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
because I'm just gonna have to just, I guess, honor, treasure, and love the moments. I would tell, myself today, remind myself today, there's
Uh,
people here right now, today, who love me, and I
yeah.
need to spend time with them and love them back.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. That's so profound, because like you said, that time goes by so fast. And as you were talking about, the connection with your dad, with your mom, they've raised an eagle. You know, I have a hawk's nest in my yard, and I don't know. I mean, you think I'm running a zoo here? I mean, it's like that. I have animals living in my yard that just people ride by like that's a hawk's nest. People stop out front and see them out there, and every now and then you see one snatch up a squirrel. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah, I video and I thought about. I'm like, I'm not gonna put that on Facebook. People don't, because it was quite interesting.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I learned about the hawks and birds in general is that they mature very quickly. Like you never see a baby hawk, you never see a baby pigeon. And
Mhm.
so when you have a relationship like you have with your dad and with your mom, they raised an eagle. And so they have given you everything you need, whether they're here or not, but they've given you everything you need. And many people don't have that. When you don't have a rock, a foundation, a frame of reference that you can trust, and that
You're right.
knows yeah, that you can trust and knows what they're talking about, it makes life a little bit harder. You got to put in some more time and may have to bump your head more, hit a few more holes, boy. But if you can just have that information. So thank you so much for that. I just appreciate it. Thank you for the book. your commentary on the book. I thought you would love it, and
Mhm.
it's based on your work. Yeah, yeah. Any comments?
Absolutely.
Yeah, any thoughts about the book? Anything that really stood out for you?
Well, like I said, the whole manifesting was really good. I like that part. And again, I like the visualization that you talked about because I heavily believe in that. That is manifesting,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell people because when I work with women and or men, because I actually started as a business coach, how to behave in corporate America, right? How to
Yeah.
climb the corporate ladder and so forth. Um, the I see so many people conflicting with what they want and what they say. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to be really honest with yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about that in a book, and I saw that you talked about visualizing, I was like, I completely resonate with this. When you talked
Mm-hmm.
about fear, I completely resonate with that. And I really liked again how the book you didn't because when you talk about, I'm telling you, when you talk about manifesting to people who are, I go to church every Sunday, they think it's like the devil's work, and I'm like, it's not.
Yeah.
The Bible references,
Yeah.
speaking things into fruition, so but
Yeah.
they don't, a lot of times don't want to hear it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I like how your book does tie the two together because they are, you can be spiritual, you can be religious, whatever you want to call it, but they are the same, and more people need to realize that.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's funny. One of my grandsons came to church with me one night. They'd never heard me speak. And so afterwards, I don't know. I think as a parent, whenever, you expect the kids to like what you do. And so afterwards, he said, he was very quiet and he got in the car and he says, Granddad, you know, I think you should, preach the word more. I looked around at him like, what do you mean? He said, I mean, like from the Bible.
Hmm.
And I said, now, I quoted everything I said. I referenced it in the Bible. What are you talking about? Well, I mean, like, I said, well, when's the last time you went to church? Uh, he couldn't even remember. I said, when's the last time you read the Bible?
Hmm.
Uh, and it said something to me, and I think he kind of got it. It's like you responded in a way that you really don't know what you're talking about.
Mm.
You know?
Hmm.
And so many times people hide behind a perception of the Bible when they really don't know. When you read it, I love teaching. I teach Bible classes, a couple of Bible universities. I take it so seriously, but to get people beyond that point of being able to see the principles, it's not just the story. Every story, every person in the Bible is you, is an aspect of you. And that manifestation, I mean, they talk about it all the time. What do you think the promised land is? It's a
Hmm.
manifestation.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then you think about why couldn't Moses go into the promised land? Because his level of consciousness was not there. His level of consciousness was to get them free.
Mm.
But
Okay.
he had to send the next generation into the promised land, which is a vision. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
when we teach it, yeah, they go like, wow, yeah, okay. But yeah, thank you so much for those comments. Yeah, we get a lot of, it's everybody doesn't love it. And I have people that go, man, what kind of church do you teach at? Now what, like is Jesus up on on the cross? I want to keep him on the cross. I want him to be an example. Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, my dear, I have enjoyed this conversation. I think that your coaching business is going to be much broader. You have so much more wisdom. Relationships are important, but there,
Absolutely.
but there's that life aspect of it. And I think you have because you've been in on the battlefield, you've been in situations, and you've come through victoriously. And so I'm just honored to share with you. I'm just loving it. Any final thoughts you would like to share with the ladies, the men, the people who listen to this?
I guess final thought I would say to anyone, just be open minded. Be open minded for new experiences, meeting new people. Let's judge less and let's be more curious. Let's be curious about the people we meet. Because a lot of times we come and we meet people with our own judgments, right? If you come with more curiosity, you might learn that you guys have more in common than you think. So just
Wow.
be open minded and curious.
Wow. Thank you so much. So give us your Instagram page again
Sure. It's V. So V like Victor mindful underscore coach.
and your website.
My website is vmindful.com. And you can find me V Mindful as well as on Facebook.
Yes. I love the way you did the words. Be mindful.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, my dear, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for
Uh,
having me.
and to our guests, we have had just a great discussion. And I think that many of you will want to listen to this broadcast and share it with somebody. I guarantee that you know somebody. It may be a woman, it may be a man, but you know somebody who needs to hear this message, who needs to know that it's all right to be all right. It's all right to be smart. It's all right to have masculine, to be in charge, and to
Yes.
learn how to not let that be a hindrance, but how to let it be a benefit and a blessing to all involved. So once again, you can be what you want to be. You can do what you want to do. You can have anything you desire, always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is. Whoa. Thank you.
Well,
Mm.
thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
When is your birthday?
January 22nd
Okay.
in
So,
76.
and so that's what Sagittarius, what sign is that? That's Aquarian, isn't it?
Aquarius.
Okay. So my, my daughter, like I said, my daughter is a daddy daughter, you know,
Okay.
and and she tells her friends, she said, "You told your daddy this," and you, well, I have to admit, I lived a very free life.
Okay.
I was blessed to have money real soon,
Mm.
and for many years was never married. I never saw myself as a family man, as a husband, as a father for many years, and so I just was like I say, man on the loose, but always a good person, you know.
Okay.
Oh yeah, always a nice person. And so my daughter lives in New York, and I lived there for many many years after I finished college, and I practiced law there. But she'll go places, and I sent her to when my old law partner died. I for some reason I couldn't go, and so I asked her if she would go, and because she had met him, and she knew him, and so she goes to the funeral, and the lady says, "You're Herbert's daughter." Well, which one of the women are you? Which one is your mama? He had a lot of them running around. I think he was living with two or three of them at one time. Which one is your mama?
Oh no. Oh my gosh.
My daughter called me up. She said, Dad, she said, this lady, I forget her name, it's something Scott. She said she came up and she said to me, she said, well, which one of the women are you? Your daddy lived with three women at one time. I said, when you get older, Livy, maybe I can explain that to you. So about 4 years later, she comes. She says, Dad, I'm ready to hear the story now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And so we have had that kind of relationship, where she tells her friend, she said, nothing is off limits. When I talk to my dad, nothing is off limits. And you
Mhm.
said something very profound. I learned it. I didn't learn it with my son. My first, I didn't learn it. I was always trying to tell him, you know. But by the time my daughter came along, and I had like 20 years between my middle son and my daughter,
Okay.
20 years different mom.
Mhm.
And but they look alike.
Okay.
Okay. But by the time my daughter, I learned that lesson to listen that your dad learned. that if you just listen, that's half the program right there.
Mm-hmm.
And don't judge, you know, listen and don't judge. And when you give advice, give it in love, you know. And that has served my daughter so well. She's just about yours. She's a little older than your son. She just turned 30. And
Okay.
so
Mm-hmm.
and so she said, Dad, all my friends say, I need a dad like yours. You can just call your dad and talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great blessing. I mean,
It sure is.
yeah, that's a great blessing because, just knowing some of the things she calls me about, I said, God, if I wasn't here, who would she get information from? It's like the blind leading the dumb
Yeah.
backwards. Yeah, yeah,
I can definitely understand that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
My boyfriend even said that to me one day. He was like, because sometimes he doesn't do a great job in listening sometimes, and
yeah,
I have to tell him, and a lot sometimes I even slip up and say I'm just gonna ask my daddy,
uh-huh, yeah,
and I know that one day I was really upset at was something my youngest did, and I was sitting there crying, and I had to go outside and
uh,
call my father, and and my boyfriend at that time, he said this last year, he was like, what are you gonna do? Something happened to you about he said, because I just don't know how you're going to cope. You only talk to your father.
uh-huh,
And I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do either.
yeah, yeah. Well, I tell you, I had an uncle, Uncle Benny, because my dad, I didn't find out who my dad was until about 10 years ago. Okay, all
Oh
this time I had suspicions, but well, two things. I found out about 10, maybe 12 years ago. And then when I found out, I learned that everybody knew but me. Okay. Everybody knew but me because the circumstances of my birth was so traumatic. So many things happened. It was almost like a news event. And the people who knew just assumed that I knew. And all these years I never knew.
wow.
And so the I was going to make a point. Um, anyway, the uh, the man I had who raised me was was the man my mother married. She was a janitor, and he did not assert himself at all. I think he felt that because he didn't have any education, he hadn't finished high school, he'd been a boxer, and he really didn't read that well. And so he did not assert anything. His thing would be like to take me to the movies, to take me to this, and that was kind of it. And he kind of had his own life. And so I had an Uncle Benny who was a lawyer, hard driving, mean son of a gun. I mean, he had two names for me. And this is, one of those persons with such a terrible disposition that it scares you away. Like, he never could relate to his kids.
Mhm.
And at that point in my life, I'd hit a rock. I'd hit a boulder, forget a rock.
Mhm.
And my mother told me, I called my mother. And when you've grown and you've been out in the world all those years, you call your mom, it's got to be serious. And my
Mhm.
mom said, well, don't come home. You need to go call your uncle. Now, he didn't like me. He hates me. She said, well, call him anyway. So I called him, and of course, he didn't want anything to do with me. Yeah, I mean, everything that could go wrong had gone wrong. So finally, he said, I'll give you a job collecting my rents. Like, man, I got degrees. I got, you know, I've been in charge of stuff. What? And something said, well, just go ahead with it. We worked out a deal. I even lost my place to live. I mean, I mean, just all the worst things. So anyway, there was a brownstone that he had, and he said, well, I'll let you, you can rent a place there. Well, anyway, over the years, his disposition was so mean. Even when he called my name, he called me. I had two names. The first name was Herbert. God damn it. Okay. And the second name was God damn it, Herbert. And so I interpreted that as the Lord telling me, listen, if you could stick this one out. But I saw him do something that made me understand a whole different level. I was between collecting and I was driving him, driving him where he had to go to court and back and forth. And I watched him do a deal with these Jewish guys. And he was representing Wilt Chamberlain, the basketball player.
Okay.
And they needed to close a deal, and they needed $1 million cash money, basically. And I saw him go to these two Jewish guy and this Jewish lady, and he got $1 million. And it was that day I said to myself, I want to be able to do that. That's fine, because I was just, like I said, I was like talent on fire,
Mm-hmm.
I had all the stuff I thought I wanted, but I was just as crazy as hell, but at least not a good crazy. Okay, so whoever interacted with me, they say, well, man, I had a hell of a good time. I went places I never went before. The bird is crazy, but I would go back if I wanted to. I know I could always go back. But anyway, I watched him operate, and it taught me patience. It took me 10 years working with him. I became a lawyer, became a good lawyer. And he never actually made me a partner, but I became his lawyer. And that moment came and said, well, as he got older and stuff, they said, well, how were you? He was my go-to person, although you couldn't come to him like you call your dad or my daughter calls me. When you came to him, you're going to get the lecture. he gonna talk shit all the way, But so that meant when you went to him for advice, you better be prepared to take a beating. But if you stuck around, you'd get a solution.
Okay.
And so when he was at that point to pass, where he was nearing his transition, he said something. He said, whenever you're in a situation and you don't know what to do, you ask yourself, if you did know, what would you do? And I thought about it for a while, and I'm like, okay, because what do I know? I know what he's taught me. What do you know? You know what your dad has taught you. And so if they're not, though, then the question is, if I did know the answer, what would I do? And that then gives you a connection beyond your conscious, subconscious, superconscious mind, because all the things you've learned from him, all the information, all that you've seen has been implanted in your subconscious and your superconscious mind. And so the moment you said, if I did know, what would I do? You've literally opened the gates.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to apply that question now.
Yeah. So I did know, what would I do? And it will guide you, because you got all the information you'll ever need to do anything you want.
Amen. Yeah, you got to trust yourself. I trust yourself.
Okay, dear. Thank you so much. And then we're on for the 19th at 8 a.m. on Instagram.
Hey, I'll be in Jamaica, and that'll be 7 a.m. there.
That's right. That's right.
My crooked, so don't y'all gonna get my Jamaica look.
All right. Well, that's it. Look, when you're pretty, you can't look ugly. When you're ugly, you might not get pretty.
Well, when you post this, just put, be mindful. I don't want to put Vanetta Christian in front.
I got you.
Google me.
No problem. I can probably edit that out if you want me to.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
can. And
yeah.
because my name, I'm like, ugh, my name's so Googleable. People be at my front door, you know.
Well, I used to write under assume that I wrote a book. I wrote some kind of tasty hot novels
Okay.
under BJ Sunshine. And then see, you read some of my books. I think I managed to get most of them off the market, but every now and then one will pop up. You read my book, you'll be looking up at me, go like, hmm.
Well, I do understand that. So yeah,
So,
because I've had men try to, my inbox stays jumping with some man, or even me going to Target.
yeah,
I've had mostly white men follow me to my car.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
to the point where my dad said, "You need to take one of those boys, my sons, but they don't want to go to the store with me." To my
uh-huh,
dad, you got to take one of them boys with you to the store
yeah,
because I've had that happen a few, but it's all because I'm a friendly person, and I think
yeah,
people like energy,
yeah,
and they're thinking, "Oh, she's a cool
yeah,
person. Let me go
yeah,
stop her,"
yeah,
So that's why I don't use my full name.
yeah, yeah. Well, and you don't know how to frown real good, so, so yeah. I got some people. I got. They say I put my mean face on, like look at you, like when a bird, and then when somebody looks at you, you give them the mean face. They're like, oh, okay, I don't know what she into, but I ain't talking to her. So you may, yeah,
I'll be
but
like,
that's not, yeah, but that's
"Hey."
not your nature. That's just not your nature. Yeah. All right, dear. Well,
Well, thank you so
thank you,
much.
and I'll let you know as soon as we get this put together, and look forward to talking with you on while you're in Jamaica.
All right, thank you. Same
Thank
here.
you,
Thank you.
dear. All right now.